Welcome to the Subjective Professor podcast, where we reject coercion and hypocrisy. It's Friday, June 13th, 2025, episode 413. Trump is a liar. So, this is his post that he made today. I gave Iran a chance after chance to make a deal. I told them in the strongest of words to just do it. But no matter how hard they tried, no matter how close they got, they just couldn't get it done. I told them it would be much worse than anything they know anticipated or were told that the U.S. makes the best and most lethal military equipment anywhere in the world by far, and that Israel has a lot of it, with much more to come, and they know how to use it. Certain Iranian hardliners spoke bravely, but they didn't know what was about to happen. They are all dead now, and it will only get worse. There has already been great death and destruction, but there is still time to make this slaughter, with the next already planned attacks being even more brutal, come to an end. Iran must make a deal. Before there is nothing left, and save what was once known as the Iranian Empire, no more death. No more destruction. Just do it before it's too late. God bless you all. So that's what he posted. And it really irks me that he wrote, God bless you all at the very end of it, because then it implicates Christianity. It makes it really easy for people who are not Christians, especially who are Muslims, to just take a dump on Christianity. And that kind of stuff, it really just so frivolous. You just murdered all these people, and then you say, God bless you. Come on. But if you've been watching the Judge Napolitano, you know that it's Trump who keeps changing the terms of the deal, right? So at first he says, yeah, you can have nuclear development for civilian use. And then he changes and says, no, you can't have any nuclear energy at all, period, done. And there's a problem with that, right? It's extremely problematic. And I'll probably get into that in just another sentence. But and not only that, negotiation. This is so when he says deal, okay, it's supposed to mean negotiation, but it's not either. It's a demand. It's an ultimatum, which he is making. And I've talked about this before in my episodes with Thucydides, that the side that makes an ultimatum really is giving the other side no choice. It basically is saying surrender, make a deal. You know what I mean? It's just he uses the word deal, but I think he means negotiation. But negotiation means there's as much give as there is take. And both sides have to like the deal in order for them to take it. Otherwise, right, you don't have freedom. You don't have that agency. You just have a dictator and everybody else having to go along with it. Right. So it's unfortunate that Trump thinks that the American military makes the best weapons, unless there are weapons that we don't know about. But we don't have hypersonic missiles. Okay. And I don't think he's been updated on the production levels of American munitions, that in a protracted war, the US is toast, right? This is just, it's so ridiculous, right? That his bravado is so, it's like a paper tiger, really. Uh, but, be that as it may, the lying part is that, number one, he says that he tried to make a deal. They have a chance to make a deal. That's a lie. He gave them ultimatums. There is no negotiation. There is do this or get bombed. You know what I mean? And I think anyone who understands what will happen next will never say yes to that. Everyone knows, unless you're an idiot, that if you get rid of your nukes, the US bombs you, or they use their proxy, in this case Israel, using US weapons to bomb you. Okay. And at this point, especially after yesterday's episode, now it doesn't even matter if you have nuclear weapons, but Saddam Hussein, Gaddafi, anyone who agrees to, I don't know if Hussein had a nuclear weapons program, but I know Gaddafi, he got rid of his nuclear weapons and he got bombed. Who didn't get bombed? That would be North Korea. And that is ripe for bombing. But of course, they already have uh, they have a nuke, and so you can't bomb them. Otherwise, they might use it. And that's the clearest message that Trump is actually saying. Don't ever give up your nukes. And in fact, what is it? Professor Mearsheimer had a episode with Judge Knapp today, and that's what he said, that the conclusion is get a nuke. The only way you can protect yourself against America is getting a nuke. And so this is kind of the unintended consequence of the stupidity of the neocons here in America. Now, this is the thing where it really bothers me and where I think Trump is a liar. He promised to end wars, not start them. I mean, he's sitting there saying, "Yeah, this is not my war. If I was president, they never would have started," right? That he was going to end the Ukraine war in a day, right? Yeah. What has he done? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. The war in Ukraine is still going, and now he's, participating in the start of another war. Come on. It's just such. Uh, And keep in mind too that this was the eve, right before uh, a, a negotiation meeting, right, where they were supposed to talk about what to do moving forward. And so, on the one hand, you're discussing peace, but then on the other hand, you're planning to bomb them, right? See, that's what Trump said, right? He knew this was going to happen, which kind of makes you suspicious about whether Trump actually knew about Ukraine's attack of Russia last week or the week before, or whenever that was, right? Because he lies, so when is he telling the truth? Right? Now you just go backwards and say, well, everything he says, you can't trust it, right? Nothing is trustworthy now. In other words, the trust is broken with the Americans who voted for peace and also with other countries like Iran. Trust is broken with countries like Russia and China, if it wasn't broken already. So who would negotiate with the US in good faith, right? But guaranteed, a lot of Americans will sit there and say, oh, if we're ever in negotiation with someone else and they bomb the US, they'll say, oh, look at those evil people, right? They were negotiating peace with us and then they bomb us. Well, that's what we do, right? That's what the US does. That's what our government does. Right. And I'm sure the US was key in confiscating Russia's gold at the beginning of the uh excuse me, Russia's gold, whether it's Russia's gold, I know they back when they had the Tsar, the Bank of England, I believe, confiscated the Tsar's gold, which was in England at the time, right? Because to settle accounts and stuff, everyone had a little bit of gold in everyone each other's countries to make payments and then to settle, debts and whatnot. And so the US was key in confiscating Russia's assets at the beginning of the Ukraine war. And then the US, through Trump, he's our representative. And so therefore, other countries are going to say the US badmouths everyone. And then they expect those other countries to make a deal. What does that even mean? Right? It's like I call you all these names and then I say, now, come on, take the deal. What is wrong with you? And every time he does that, Trump does that. He badmouths other countries and other people. It's weird. It's so childish. It's so petty. And I go back to the whole mental decline issue that I raised, several weeks ago. That is this him unable to understand that the stakes are much, much bigger than a deal for a new hotel or for a casino? Does he realize that the stakes are much bigger? Does he understand what it means for people to die because of an unprovoked attack? Ugh, it's just like a preemptive strike, which is what it's called, which is what Hitler did all the time. And it's just so infuriating because then the Democrats who hate him anyway, right? They're like, oh, see, I was right about him all this time. No, you weren't. See, that's the thing. What they claim they were right about is nothing about what I am talking about here, right? So they're saying, well, he colluded with Russia. If he colluded with Russia before, why is he supposedly trying to start a war with them? You know, why is he not bringing about peace if, in fact, he was colluding with Russia? It doesn't make any sense. And Iran's response will probably be the same as last time because it worked last time. And that is you fire low-cost missiles and drones to deplete Israel's air defenses, right? Their ammo. Remember what I said. They'll shoot a $30,000 drone at Israel, and Israel must fire two multi-million dollar missiles to take it down. And they say, ooh, look, none of them penetrated. Yeah, but now you don't have any missiles left. And so I saw Not the Bee had posted a series of videos where the first wave of drones were all shot down, right? Israel was bragging, none of them got through. But then there was a second wave, and then a couple got through, and then a third wave where a lot of them got through. Okay, that's at least what I saw from Not to Beat. And if Iran just keeps shooting missiles, right? Low cost, high cost, hypersonic. I mean, what is Israel going to do to stop them? You know, I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think they can do anything. Although I did see a video too of, um, some kind of anti-ballistic missile system where they were shooting down the missiles before they entered the atmosphere, right? So they were really, really high altitude. That would be interesting, right? If there was indeed an anti-ballistic missile system. I wonder how they would do against hypersonic missiles. Nevertheless, I saw a video of Yemeni people, right? Who live in Yemen, watching on a big screen and cheering every time a missile got through and hit Tehran or some other city in Israel. And people might say, oh, that's so disgusting. Really? So when people saw bombs exploding, missiles exploding in Tehran, in Iran, no one cheered, right? You didn't see Lindsey Graham, getting off because he saw that the attacks finally happened and he's like, game on. A lot of people posted weird memes about that, right? So no, yeah, they're sick, enough sick on both sides, right? Maybe you were one of those people that cheered people dying somewhere because you don't know who they are. Or, I mean, and then if you imagine that the Yemenis, right, the Yemeni people were being bombed by the United States, bombed by Israel relentlessly, right? Trump was bragging about it, like cheering all those people that were killed, right? And if that's been happening to you for a very long time, I think I would cheer too if the people who were doing that to me finally got a taste of their own medicine. And so, what's my point? The point is that there is a lot of hate and anger building up against Israel and the US. Like I've been saying this before, right? How the US will pontificate and be so full of all this self-righteousness. And then you go to another country and everyone hates them and they're like, whoa, whoa, why? I'm doing a good thing here for you. So paternalistic, so condescending that they don't understand why a lot of people don't like them, why they don't want them to be there. And so there's a lot of hate and anger building up against Israel and the US. And so if there ever was a hot war when US troops had to go in, do not, do not expect mercy from the other soldiers. Expect them to mistreat you, to beat you, to embarrass you, to shame you, because that's basically what the US has been doing for decades, right? Iranians are saying that they shot down a bunch of Israeli planes and they captured a pilot. You know, I don't know if that's true or not, right? Because obviously something like that can't be really confirmed until you see video. But yeah, if it's true, I just think about how much suffering he's going through right now, right? Especially if the person who's in charge of his, you know, prison cell is somehow related to someone who was killed by an Israeli missile. Oh yeah, yeah, it will not be a picnic for that person. So it's upsetting also to me to see people belittle the response from Iran, right? Like this is all some kind of joke, right? Like war is a game where if you miscalculate, you just respawn, right? It's just so crazy, especially not remembering the embarrassing withdrawal out of Afghanistan, out of the failure of uh, silencing the Houthis from Yemen and failing to open up the port, right? Not being able to stop all of the missiles shot by the Houthis at aircraft carriers. And so they have to make these sharp turns in the ocean and planes start rolling off its deck. You know, it's just, come on, really? And it's so upsetting. It really upsets me how people are this clueless, like they're cheering a football game or a baseball game, you know, like we're going to get you now. And this is why Ron Paul was so great, right? And so I was just getting so upset that I basically saw this video where it was Ron Paul and the Fed lecture he gave 13 years ago or something like that. I guess that was when he was running for president back in 2012. But this is why he was a man of principle. People would always try to get him with gotcha questions, right? And he would always respond in principle, right? And by doing that, he would reveal that these gotcha questions were basically all propaganda, hypocritical lines. And what they were, it depends on the time period, right? Because depending on what point in time we are in history, right, the US propaganda will contradict itself, right? If you laid out all of the propaganda of the United States, you'll see that it's contradictory, right? They'll curse it one day, one year, one decade, and next decade, it's standard US foreign policy. Uh, and the fact that Ron Paul was able to keep principle made him hated and respected at the same time in Congress. I think a lot of people were jealous of his courage to be able to do what he did, not have to worry about reelection, right? And do what needed to be done. And he didn't care if he didn't get elected, really, because the message can never change. But by running for president in 2012, I didn't know about him in 2008. Otherwise, I would have voted for him. My life would have been better 4 years earlier. But he changed the conversation for me anyway in 2012 for a lot of people. He brought the conversation to principles and in the process exposing hypocrisy and injustice. He brought humanity and justice into the conversation. Like the stuff that you're hearing now about Iran, it's just so ridiculous. It's absurd. It's hypocrisy and injustice in your face, and people are cheering it, right? And anyone who disagrees with you, well, they're anti-Semitic or they're terrorists. I mean, it's kind of nuts. Uh, and if you remember back in 2012, Ron Paul actually won 5 states. He won 5 states because he played by the rules, right? And he figured out how to get 5 states, which then would require a brokered convention. So the Republican National Convention, where they nominate their candidate for the presidential election, It would have had to have been brokered. They they would have to negotiate, okay, who's actually going to be the candidate. Uh, when that became clear, they figured out how to sabotage everything. They disqualified the entire state of Maine. They kicked them out, like 35 delegates or something like that. They just kicked them out, right? And I remember watching them that like being flabbergasted. Here they are at their supposed representative government convention, and they were kicked out, right? All because their opinion wasn't the right one. And then when other states would announce how many delegates went to Ron Paul, they cut the mic or they would block the mic, right? So that's why a brokered convention never happened, why no one even really talks about it anymore. But of course, if he did get elected, I don't think that people would have stood for it, right? They would have taken him out before he could do anything. But it would have changed the conversation even more. Why take out this guy, right? Because just by speaking what he always says, got people to realize what is the serious fundamental problem of the United States of America, right? And the solution, of course, always is liberty, right? So at the very end of his talk from 13 years ago, he would say, "Focus on liberty," right? And that's what I always say: freedom for the win again. But instead of having Ron Paul as president for 8 years, avoiding all of this mess. Now we have to live in this mess, and it is going to get worse. Trump is right. It's going to get worse, but not in the way that he thinks. Look, all this time he's trying to lower the interest rates, lower the price of oil. Yeah, he's not going to have either of those now, right? So he sabotages himself. It's just that's what's so weird about the dude. He has no principles at all. It's just loyalty and what sounds good, it seems, but there's just no principle at all. He said he wanted peace. He said, look at those people dying. They didn't have to die. And now he's responsible for uh, more murder. It just ugh, makes me so angry, honestly. But nevertheless, I continue to hope for the best while preparing for the worst. And the worst is yet to come. That's it for this episode. I will talk to you without a rant next time.